Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. I am super excited to announce that today's video is a Viking collab with Krystals Fantasy. This was such a fun collab to work on as we really gave ourselves full creative freedom, the only parameter being that it was Viking inspired. Krystals' work is so amazing and I highly recommend that you check out their channel. I will be sure to leave a link to their video in the description down below. And without further ado, let's jump right into the video. I rerouted her off camera with Caron Simply Soft yarn in the shades Burgundy and Pumpkin. I also used a little bit of the shade Bone. If you'd like to see how I make the doll dreads, I do have a separate video for that and I will link it down below. For the doll base, I'm using Cupid, and her face mold to me looks exactly like Gulia's. I have previously used Gulia as a base for a Viking doll, and I really thought her face mold lended itself to a more fierce expression. So I thought she would be perfect for this project. I am ready to burrito wrap her hair to protect it from the MSC. Please be sure to read the manufacturer's safety instructions before using MSC, also known as Mr. Super Clear. I was really inspired by this face paint I found on Pinterest by Roselle, and in general I'm always inspired by Freya Rune dolls on Instagram. I start painting on her mask with black acrylic paint. I find it easier to get those fine wispy lines with acrylics. I'd like to add some realism to her skin with freckles. It probably would have been ideal to do this prior to the face paint, but since I'm using watercolor pencils, it's easy enough to just wipe them off where I need to. Picking the pigment directly off of the pencil here with a damp detail brush, I'm going to test out how this looks on a piece of paper first. Okay, yeah, I think I'm happy with that. So I'm just gonna go straight in and start applying this to her skin. For the freckles, I used a combination of Burnt Sienna and Umber by Caran d'Ache. It is summer here in Missouri and very humid, so unfortunately the MSC was just not providing a workable surface on top of the acrylic paint. So I had to remove the acrylic paint just over where the eyes would be. After using the black pan pastels and another layer of MSC, I finally have a surface I can draw on. My plan as of right now is to continue building the pan pastels around the eyes and hope that it blends into the acrylic paint. If it doesn't, then I will have to go in with more paint at the end. I have my other Viking here for reference. I want to make sure I get the eyes positioned correctly. I have picked out several shades of green for her irises, the darkest one being leaf green, then fern, khaki green, and sherbet lemon. All of them are Derwent ink tints with the exception of the khaki, which is Caran d'Ache Supercolor Soft. I think to sketch out the iris, I'm going to take the mid-toned fern. as of right now, I really don't like her eyebrows at all. I've messed around with them a little bit off camera and I just cannot get them to a place I'm happy with. I don't know, to me it feels like her face looks like it's scrunched down and then there's all this space up here. So what I think I'm going to do is bring the mask up higher and just cover the eyebrows with more of the black paint. Because I don't want to commit to paint, I think I'm going to do it with black watercolor pencil first, see how that goes. But before I get to that, I am going to do the black stripe down her bottom lip. With a tiny amount of acrylic paint on a dotting tool, I am going to add her eye shines. Okay, the burrito wrap has come off. I will be adding adornments to her hair later on, and I also want to add 3D lashes, but I'm going to wait until later to add those just because she's easier to maneuver without them on. I have sanded her body off camera and I ran out of acetone-free nail polish remover. I can't use acetone on the body as it will melt the plastic, but what I can do is embrace the black marks and try to make it look like an intentional part of the design. I got in trouble with my friend last video for not showing the body blushing, so I will be sure to show that today. Okay, most if not all of her body is going to be covered up by clothing, so there is absolutely no reason to do this, but despite that fact, I am going to take the same 2 shades of watercolor pencil, burnt sienna, and umber to add freckles to her body as well. I have sprayed the body with 2 layers of MSC and I am ready to start blushing. I think I'm going to primarily stick with the dark sienna and maybe a little bit of the red brown, and then I'm going to add a bit of black pastel over the black parts of her body. Now that I've wasted a fair bit of time on her body, I am ready to start covering it up with clothes. I took a pair of Gilda's pants and dyed them with this Rit all-purpose black dye. It even dyed the Velcro and the stitching. It also dyed my hands a little bit and underneath a couple nails. Please excuse that. Now that I have the pants sorted, I can move on to her top. I printed off this pattern by an amazing artist on Instagram. They have all sorts of free patterns for various types of dolls. It's just so incredibly generous, and these patterns are extremely detailed. They even come with instructions, which is incredibly helpful for a novice like me. Okay, I have cut out my pattern and I'm now ready to cut that out of the fabric. Once I get that done, I can begin sewing. I am the least qualified person to demonstrate how to sew anything. As you can see, things are already not lining up correctly, but I can show some of the process for comedic value if nothing else. I have just temporarily hemmed the edges with Fabri-Tac glue. I don't know if it was necessary with this fabric, but I did go ahead and use fray check on the edges as well. Due to the fact that I missed the first step, which was to attach the sleeves, this top unfortunately became sleeveless. Instead, I just sewed up the seams and hemmed the edges. Alright, her shirt is done. I apologize for not catching more of the process. Even taking filming out of the equation, sewing is really a struggle for me. I hope it'll get easier to film in the future as I improve, but we'll see how that goes. What I've done off camera is add some embroidery details. I tried to do it with embroidery thread, but I thought it looked too big, so instead I used sewing thread and used actual embroidery thread for the laces. I also stole Katrine's hands. Borrowing the bracers from another Viking, I tried them on with the black hands, and to me it just looked too disconnected. What I think I'm going to do instead is use Katrine's hands and maybe bring a little bit of black onto the top of the hands as well. I'm also going to take some of this black pastel and put that over the top of the acrylic paint. All said and done, here is how her hands turned out. Alright, shifting gears, I think I am going to start working on customizing these boots. I previously found a pair of these on eBay and I customized them for my other Viking. I really liked the look of them, so I got busy scouring the internet and got lucky enough to find a second pair. I still do not know who these belong to. I think they're Ever After High, but I don't know that for sure. If anybody knows who these boots belong to, please leave me a comment down below. With my last Viking, I left the fringe in place, but I think this time I want to replace it with fur. I need to take down this bulk so that the fur doesn't stick out unnaturally. Let's go ahead and finish this off with the magic of editing. Now I can apply a coat of gesso to help the paint adhere. The gesso has dried and I am ready to start painting. Now that the paint is dried, I am going to break the black pan pastels back out and add a little bit of shading. Mixing a little bit of white with the brown, I'm going to dry brush this lighter shade over the high points. I sprayed the boots with 2 coats of MSC to seal in my work and applied a coat of Liquitex High Gloss Varnish to the beads for a little bit of shine. I wanted to use this faux fur sheet that I got from Joann's, but I noticed an issue when I cut it to size. The fur, in my opinion, sticks out way too far. I was really trying to go for a more realistic look. I tried to use a trimmer to shorten the fibers, but it did not shorten them enough. So I think what I'm going to try instead is to adhere the fur with my Fabri-Tac glue, and once it's glued on there, try to trim it down with my scissors. Here's what it's looking like after I have wrapped the little pieces of leather around the fur. Unfortunately, I did not get the fur up high enough, and when I trimmed it down, it revealed the tops of the boots, but I'm not sure that it's bothering me enough to mess with fixing it. What I'm gonna work on next is making her bracers. First cutting them out of the foam so I can determine the size and shape that I want, and then cutting them out of my warbler. I've brought out my doll model and wrapped their arms in masking tape to prevent the warbler from sticking. And now I'm ready to form the warbler. I have my hair dryer here, and I am just going to heat up each piece of warbler until it becomes flexible, and then form it around her arms. Okay, I am done with the bracers, and I am just in the process of adding 2 coats of Liquitex raw umber paint. While I'm waiting on the bracers to dry, I think I need to go ahead and get started on making the axes. I've cut a wooden dowel to size, and with a sanding block, I'm just going to round off the edges. I'm ready to break out my epoxy clay. I am going to take equal portions of part A and part B, thoroughly mix those together while wearing gloves, and start making the axe blade. The other thing I want to try to make out of the extra clay is a little raven skull, maybe 2 if I can manage it. After letting the epoxy clay cure for 24 hours, I sanded the pieces off camera, and I am finally ready to begin painting. I'm first going to start off by watering down my raw umber paint because I want the axe handles to have more of a stained than a painted look. I think it looks more realistic if you can see the wood grain. A big thank you to Chantel from Raven's Minis for showing me the light. I saw them use a piece of tape up to keep their miniatures from moving around, and honestly, life-changing. I have the tiniest piece of faux suede that I was possibly able to cut off. Hopefully this is small enough to work on this scale. Here is the before and after. I like it both ways. I think this may provide a little bit better grip for her in her hand. I think I want to do a loose wrap at the bottom as well. The axes and the skulls are done, and now I can get the skulls ready to turn into jewelry with my 0.2mm wire. I applied her lashes off camera, as that process is pretty fiddly. As for the state of her hair, please ignore that for now. I am going to fix her hair later on. I cut off a piece of this pop faux fur sheet that I used for her boots, and after cutting a half circle shape, I am going to hem the top edge. Please excuse the terrible lighting. This is definitely not the ideal time to be filming, but I wanted to pop in for a quick update on where I'm at. I did finish the belts for the axes off camera. I just cut thin strips of the faux leather, added on the hardware, and a little holder for the axe. The other thing that I did off camera is I made her fur hip wrap. I first began by cutting a half circle out of the fur. I cut it into strips so that it looked more like animal pelts, but the ends of the fur were curling up. I tried sewing the edges together, and surprisingly enough, that worked. They are now laying flat. I just need to attach them to a belt and add those onto her hip. With the wrap complete, this Viking is done. Thanks to my mom, we have the perfect Norse name for her, Revna, which means raven. Here's a look at Revna's final photos. Don't forget to check out Krystals' video for her amazing Viking. I will leave a link in the description down below. And that's a wrap for today's video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and a big thank you to Krystal. I had such a great time working on this collab, and I hope we get to do more in the future. If you liked this video, please give it a like and comment down below, as it really helps out my channel. Until next time, take care. If it doesn't, What do you think of the doll supply, Sprue? Oh, that's horrifying.